right. This is the Clark County Today election night coverage for 2020. We're coming to you live from Vancouver, Washington, and I'm joined here with editor Ken Vance and reporter Paul Valencia, and I am reporter Jacob Grandeman. So thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. We just ask that you bear with us. We're going to have a human conversation this evening. It's really going to be very driven by conversational dialogue between the three of us. We're going to be looking at information throughout the county. We're going to be really hyper-focused on community races that matter to you guys because, as we all know, right now with a presidential election year, sometimes the smaller races that affect us here at home can get lost in the shuffle. And so we wanted to make sure that you guys get that information and that you're aware of it, and we're really excited to bring it to you tonight. So without further ado, I think we're going to hop into it a little bit and start with just a little bit of information about the presidential race. We're going to kind of wet our palate, so to speak, with the big ticket item, and then we're going to kind of move into some other things this evening. So, gentlemen, I'll kind of let you guys kick it off, what you're kind of thinking as we're looking at results from a couple different sources right now. It's definitely tight.
Yeah, it's obviously election 2020, the presidential race has been one of the most highly anticipated races in our nation's history. You know, I'm 57 years old. Certainly in my lifetime, it's been one of the most anticipated races. We all know the history of what happened 4 years ago in 2016 when everybody, the country thought one thing going into the election night and then something else altogether happened. And we're trying to monitor it to see if a similar thing is happening tonight. There are some early indications. The networks have not called Florida, but there's heavy indication that President Donald Trump will carry Florida, which is an absolute must for him on his path to a victory. So it's obviously well too close to call, but there are indications that this race could be tight.
Right, most definitely.
And what's really interesting is, as you were talking, Fox News said Florida to Trump. Called Florida. It just turned red as you were talking. Now, it's Fox News talking about it. It doesn't, it's not an official.
And the pundits said Trump could not get to 270 electoral votes without getting Florida. Right. So he had to get Florida. Right. So now, our eyes will be turning to Georgia and North Carolina and Pennsylvania and some of the other states. So anyway, so it's shaping up to be an interesting night from a presidential standpoint. But obviously we also have our eyes on local races right here in Clark County.
We do. I think one of the tightest races we're looking at locally, but also from a national standpoint, is the race between Carolyn Long and Representative Jamie Herrera Butler, and that's going to be a pretty tight race. It was a pretty tight race a couple years ago, and obviously now I think if we look at the August 4th primary in that race, they were separated by about 6 points. So that's more than it was in 2018. So definitely going to be an interesting race there. Most definitely. So.
Yeah, I was obviously surprised how much of a margin Congresswoman Herrera Butler had in the primary. The DCCC came out with a poll a couple weeks ago claiming that the race was much tighter now in the general. Points, they were within 2 points of each other. So obviously not only is that a local race, it's a regional race with the 3rd Congressional District. So we'll certainly keep our eyes on that as the night goes on.
Yeah, for sure. I think another really interesting one here at home are the 2 county council races. The first obviously being between Gary Medvedji and his opponent, which I believe is Matt Little, if I can remember correctly. Yes. So many names tonight. And then the other initially was between incumbent John Blum, who ran as an independent, and then Republican Karen Bowerman and Democrat Jesse James. And as we know, Blum was eliminated in the primary, and so now it's just down to the 2 new folks. So.
Yeah, this race, Paul, I'm sorry, I don't mean to dominate the conversation.
It's quite all right.
But this race was obviously very interesting, going all the way back to the filing deadline in the spring, because Karen Bowerman didn't even apply as a candidate for the race, file as a candidate for the race until the very last minute. And the reason she did was because John Blum, who won in the prior election as a Republican, claimed independent status. This time, Karen wanted a true conservative Republican on the ticket, And then, surprise to many of us, I myself included, John Blum was the one that was eliminated in the top 2 primary, and Karen Bowerman, the Republican, and Jesse James, the Democrat, moved on to tonight's general election.
Yeah.
And so that will be another interesting race to follow.
It will be, most definitely, especially to see kind of where some of those votes that went to Blum in the primary, where those kind of shake
That's
out.
the key. Karen got the most votes in the primary,
Right.
but I believe John Blum got about 22% of the votes in the primary.
Yeah, just shy of 22.
Certainly enough votes that if those votes go to Jesse James, he could still win the election.
Absolutely.
So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with those 22% of the vote that went to John Blum.
Very interesting. Yeah, most definitely. And then we have a whole slew of Senate races, and I know that, Paul, you've interacted with some folks that are running, including Ray Reynolds, who's running for a position in the 49th against Annette Cleveland, the incumbent. So very, very interesting races there. Several of them this year.
Right, and Ray Reynolds, I'll admit, he's a friend of mine. He's not in my area, so I couldn't vote for him or whatever.
Right.
And I just wanted to say what I love about Ray Reynolds, and this is nothing against Miss Cleveland, is Ray is just a guy who has a job. He's a police officer, and he just wanted to put his name out there. And I think we should salute those people, win or lose. We should give a salute to people who are just regular people with regular jobs, deciding I want to change something, I want to put my name out there. Because let's face it, it is scary these days to put your name out there in public, to be criticized on social media, to be criticized on the news or whatever. And I just want to say to anybody who's not a career politician who is running for races, thank you. Win or lose, thank you. Because eventually things are going to change, and older politicians are going to move out, and we need to have new, fresh ideas or whatever, or we don't. If we decide we want to keep with the experience, that's fine too. But it's good to see non-professional politicians going for positions,
especially a proclaimed conservative Christian Republican in the 49th district.
Right.
Yes.
I don't have the stats in front of me. I can't remember the last time a conservative won in the 49th district. So, he's been a 21-year veteran of the Vancouver Police Department. Right. So you got to give him credit for bravery for running in the 49th district.
Absolutely. And of course, I know some of you might know me. I'm a high school sports reporter.
Right.
So, and that's how I met Ray Reynolds. The man sings the national anthem the best ever. I mean, he should be doing Super Bowls. He is the greatest national anthem singer I've ever heard. He goes to high school events, and the kids just love him. The students at all high schools love it when he comes out there, and it's a good time to remind you all that the only reason I'm here tonight is because I have sports experience. News people they go home at 5 o'clock. Sports guys, we're always getting results.
However, you've filled a very vital role for us today.
Yes,
I'm teasing, but my point is that sports guys have experience in getting results late at night.
But I think people would like to know what you were doing earlier today.
Yes.
Oh, this morning, Mike Schultz, our photographer, videographer extraordinaire, Mike Schultz and we went out to the Vancouver Mall, and we just asked people. I don't care who they voted for. We asked, what does Election Day mean to you? And we got some incredible answers. There was one lady from Ukraine, and she's married to a Hispanic. How American is that? And she's just so happy to be able to vote. She said she came from a nation that voting, it's not like it is here. And it was just so neat to hear her.
Yeah, most definitely. And we actually were able to capture some of those moments that you guys spent with folks as they were casting their ballots at the ballot box here in one of the ballot boxes here in Vancouver. And so, we'll get that queued up here in a second to show you guys. So it looks like we're ready to go. So without further ado, let's hear from some folks right here in the community.
I get a chance to vote and have my opinion be heard, and I know everybody gets to vote, and it's everybody's voice, but I'm just glad I get to be a part of it too. No matter who wins, I just get to make it. I get to cast my vote just like everybody else. It's all.
Basically, it's one of the few times we can have a voice as the people without having to become an elected official and take time away from our families.
Yeah. What does Election Day mean to you, Joe?
It means paving a path for the future for my children. you know, deciding what I believe is right for the country and, you know, right for the people, really. It's my chance to make a change.
What does Election Day mean to you?
Okay. Well, yeah, Election Day to me means being an American and having freedom and the ability to choose who we believe will be best for us. And for me, it's important to choose people that believe the same as me, as one nation under God, and that's kind of the driving force for me and what I believe our country stands for.
What does Election Day mean to you?
Oh, it means freedom. I mean, the choice to get what I want in the country done. Absolutely.
What does Election Day mean to you?
It means everybody gets to share their own voice and make the country what they want it to be and come together.
Well, thank you so much, Paul and Mike, for getting some of those interviews. We have some more later tonight that we're going to go to, a different crowd at the same location, so stay tuned to hear from more folks in the community. We just got the first round of unofficial results back for Clark County from the elections office. We have, I think, just shy of 68% of the registered votes counted at this point. So right before we went to the break, I'll just dive into this race. There's several that we're going to talk about with these results we just got back. But the state representative race between Vicky Kraft and Tanisha Harris is looking very, very close right now. I know, Ken, you were just mentioning that a moment ago as we were taking a look at the results.
Yeah, if you look back at the history of this race, it's for the Washington State legislature in the 17th district, representative position 1. Remember, in the last election, Vicky Kraft beat Tanisha Harris by just 859 votes. And currently, in the first round of results, Tanisha Harris, the Democrat challenger, is leading with 51.24% of the votes. Vicky Kraft, the incumbent Republican, has 48.76% of the votes. So it's about a 1,600 vote difference between the two of them. Yeah. And obviously there will be more votes to be counted this week.
Right.
Whether there's enough left out there for Vicky Kraft to close that margin will be interesting. You know, the old political adage is diehards and Democrats vote early,
right?
Republicans vote late.
Right.
So usually late ballots tend to favor Republicans, but 1,600 vote difference between Tanisha Harris and Vicky Kraft is pretty significant. And then there's another one here that we just talked about prior,
right,
that is very interesting. Jacob, if you want to talk about the county council race that we mentioned with Karen Bowerman and Jesse James.
Right, yes. Let me scroll down here and take a look at that one. Sorry.
No problem. I actually have it, but I wanted to let someone else speak.
Gotta love, yeah, you can take a shot at it. I'll join you.
Jesse James, as we mentioned, the Democrat.
Yeah, he's coming in. It's a very similar percentage, actually.
Yeah, he's leading with 51.25% of the votes.
Just a thousandth of a percent higher.
Yeah, Karen Bowerman, the Republican, has 48.75% of the votes. There's a little, it looks like about 1,100 vote difference between James and Bowerman. So again, you would think that Bowerman would get more of the remaining votes to be counted. Whether it's enough to close that gap, we'll have to see. But again, a little bit surprising considering, I believe, if I remember right, I think there was about a 10% difference between them in the primary. So as we talked about that 22% that John Blum got in the primary, most of those voters must have voted for Jesse James.
Right, yeah, that is definitely looking very, very consistent with what we looked at from the primary. And, you know, very similar situation, well, similar in regard to relation to the primary with Gary Medvedji and Matt Little, with Gary Medvedji coming in right now at 55.68% and Matt Little at 44.32, so about 11-point difference. And that kind of matches up pretty well. In the primary, it was about a 60-40 divide. So we're looking at that gap. It could still definitely become more similar to the primary, or it could become larger again. But that's where that race is at this moment in time. And then I'm going back up here to take a look at.
Paul,
Paul has something.
I have
here.
something. It's beyond the county, but it's the state. The Associated Press is reporting Jay Inslee will win a third term as governor.
Okay. Not a surprise.
Not a surprise.
Not surprising, yeah.
But yeah, they didn't wait long, is what I'm saying.
It was what, 1980 or 1981, the last time Washington had a Republican governor?
Yeah, that's about right.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Yeah, I think going also to some other local races, the 18th legislative district with Rick Bell and Ann Rivers is looking about the same difference as the council race that we just mentioned a minute ago. Ann Rivers coming in at 55.15% and Rick Bell at 44.85%, so about 11-point difference there as well.
Now, before you move on, you remember this race, Ann Rivers, the incumbent Republican, Rick Bell, the Democrat challenger, and there was also an official write-in candidate, former County Commissioner Tom Melky, and also former state legislator Tom Melky. It looks like there were only 2,162 write-in votes, a pretty small number, so it doesn't look like his write-in candidacy had much impact on that race for state senator in the 18th district.
Yeah, that's about right there. Going down the line here a little bit more, taking a look at, to revisit the race that we were mentioning earlier, the 49th state senator position with Annette Cleveland and Ray Reynolds. We're looking at about just shy of 59% for Annette Cleveland, and then Ray Reynolds coming in at just over 40% with 40.41%. And then about only 80 write-in votes on that one. So,
which is about the same distribution of votes that we had in the primary. And also in the 49th district for state representative Sharon Wiley, 65.69% of the votes. Justin Forsman, the Republican challenger, just 34%. And also in the 49th district, Monica Stonier with a similar comfortable lead. Monica is the Democratic incumbent. Park LaFay has about 35% of the vote, so Monica Stonier has a comfortable lead there.
Yes, most definitely. Yeah, and then obviously we have a whole score of Clark County Charter Review Commission positions that people are running for this year, and obviously those are nonpartisan positions to be on the board that kind of manages what's kind of similar to the Constitution for Clark County is what the charter kind of is. And I thought it was really interesting. I know for myself, it's a position that only comes up every so often, and so it was something that I know a lot of people I talked to weren't even aware that there was such a thing as the Clark County Charter Review Commission. They didn't even know that it was a body.
Well, basically, give a little bit of history. In Clark County, the voters passed the Home Rule Charter. I believe it's 2014.
I think 2015, but yeah.
2015, but I think the actual vote was in 2014. Anyway, they passed the charter. It instituted a new form of county government, which included the expansion of the former Board of Commissioners from 3 commissioners to 5 county councilors.
Right.
Back in the day when I was at the Reflector newspaper, I editorialized on it. One of the things I was uncomfortable with is that it took away power from these elected officials, the county councilors, and it created more power for an unelected official, the county manager.
Right.
And as you know, in the last few years, we've been through, if you count the interim, I think we've been through 4 county managers since the Home Rule Charter was established. And so anyway, so it was predetermined that every 5 years, I believe, we had to have a review of the Home Rule Charter. So this is the creation of a review board to go through the process. So this is going to be a story that those of us here at Clark County Today over the next 6 months are going to be covering pretty intimately.
Most definitely.
Because it's going to be interesting to see how they look at how the Home Rule Charter has impacted Clark County government.
But to Jacob's point, I think there were a lot of families out there that got out their ballots on the kitchen table and they went to this and went, what's that? What is that? And
I think name recognition played a huge role.
Absolutely.
Most
in
definitely.
who won those.
I think right off the bat, we don't have to go through all of them, but if we want to, I think we could maybe quickly go through, maybe just mention who's leading in each charter review position. I think we could do that pretty quickly, but Eric Holt, who ran for county council position
County chair
position a couple of years ago, is leading in the position 2. Looks like we have Mike D'Alessandro, who is currently, previously the mayor of...
And still Battleground City Council member.
Councilman for Battleground, is leading for position 3. Looks like it's pretty close, but it looks like Anthony Vendetti is looks like he's going through for position 1, leading right now. Looks like we have Kim Harless in position 2 for the Council District 1.
I think that's Kim Harless.
Oh, Kim Harless,
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Yes.
Apologies to Ms. Harless.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll keep going down here. Looks like we've got Chris Goodwin leading in position number 3 for District 1. And then in District 2 with position 1, we have Charles Chuck Green is leading there. Looks like in District 2, position 2, we have Kelsey Potter leading. In District 2, position 3, we have Dorothy Gask is leading. In District 3, position 1, we have Marlene Winningham leading, very, very, very dramatic lead. Yeah. In District 3, position 2, we've got Terry Niles leading. District 3, position 3, we have Jeff Angelo leading by a very substantial lead. And then in District 4, position 1, it looks like we have Deanna Rush is leading, I believe a previous county or city councilor for the city of Camas. Right. And then District 4, position 2, we have John Latta is leading. District 4, position 3, Liz Pike, previous state representative, is leading. And yeah, that's what we've got there for the Charter Review Commission. So sorry to just buzz through those.
I've had a chance to talk to Liz a couple times, and
Yeah.
She's been able to say, "Hey, I'm not a politician anymore." So I guess she kind of is again. So, but also, did we get? I just want to make sure we got this. Maybe I missed it. Charter Review Commission at large, position number 1. Doug Lasher is leading. Did we have
Right.
that?
I don't think I mentioned that one.
So I
Good
just want
catch.
to make sure we since we named everybody else who's leading. There you go, Doug. Yeah, you're leading. But anyway, I just thought it was funny when I heard Liz's name there. I went, "Hey, she's
Right.
not a politician anymore."
Exactly.
Well, the
She
thing
kinda-
is, though, in a position like that, in a committee that's going to perform that review, institutional knowledge will be
absolutely.
incredibly valuable as they go through the process and they go through their conversations and their discussions
Most definitely.
while in committee. And if you agree or disagree with Liz's politics, that's fine. But her institutional knowledge as a former state representative and whatnot, I think her institutional knowledge will be valuable on that committee.
Most definitely. Most definitely.
There are a number of other races we haven't mentioned, and that's because, frankly, there's no surprises in
Right.
many of those races.
Right, yeah, we just touched on a few of those. Well, I think we're going to go to a quick commercial break. We have some incredible sponsors that have really been helping us out the last, we've really gained a lot of sponsorship even in just the recent months. So we're going to go to a couple of messages from them, and we'll be right back.
We don't have, it still says on
Are you having trouble paying your utility bill? Clark Public Utilities can help 24 hours a day. Call now at 360-992-3000. You have many choices concerning whom to trust with the maintenance, service, and repair of your vehicle. Nearly 3,000 positive reviews simply can't be wrong. Schedule your appointment with Gainers Automotive today.
the entire district.
All righty, well, we're back. Thank you so much to our sponsors for providing us that information. Just having a little
Caught us
powwow
off
here behind the scenes.
Caught us off guard.
But alrighty, well now I know right before we went to a break, we mentioned some of the races that were not surprising. One of the races that we're looking at right now, at least locally, that is surprising is that 3rd congressional race with Carolyn Long and Jamie Herrera Butler. It looks like, we're looking up the numbers right now, but it looks like Long is leading, at least in Clark County. I remember the district that they represent is fairly large. It goes all the way from the coast of Washington, very deep inland onto the eastern side along the Columbia River Gorge there. So very large district. Obviously, we're just a small piece of that, but within our county and within our area, it looks like Long is leading that race right now.
And I'm just looking up one right now that shows the whole district, 74% reporting, and Congresswoman Herrera Butler is leading 54 to 45 right now, 54-46. But again, lot can change.
Yeah, although I think, if I remember right, I don't have the numbers in front of me, Congresswoman Herrera Butler did win in Clark County in the last election. However, it was a small margin. So, but it is significant that Carolyn Long is leading in Clark County this time. You remember, Carolyn is a professor at WSU Vancouver, so it's not surprising that she would fare well here in Clark County. But as Paul pointed out, it looks like the Congresswoman is on her way to re-election.
Yeah, that's looking like it.
And I'll be honest, as a guy who normally focuses on sports instead of politics, when I saw that at first, I was like, oh, wow, Miss Long is winning. But she's not winning. She's winning Clark County.
I've made that mistake before and had to be corrected that, whoa, Ken, that's just Clark County.
Right,
so.
right. And I think that's an important thing to remember, for everyone. When we're looking at these results that are being provided to us, it's important to note that there are many pieces to the puzzle, and it all fits together in that regard. So, yeah. Well, we also have. It looks like we haven't talked much about some of the measures that we had on the ballot for the state of Washington. I don't know if we can briefly mention some of those. Trying to find the results for those right now, but yeah, definitely very interesting.
And we are efforting a few guests for the next half hour or so. We hope to talk to Clark County Auditor Greg Kimsey. Obviously, he's very busy tonight and has many responsibilities, but Greg has agreed to join us here in about 15 minutes, hopefully. So hopefully he doesn't get detained. And then we also have word out with a couple of candidates. I won't jinx any of those because obviously same thing. Many of those candidates have a lot of responsibilities tonight as well. So keep our fingers crossed. Let's hope we can get a couple of guests for you here in the next half hour. And specifically, what will be interesting to talk with Greg Kimsey about, and maybe even some of the candidates if we are fortunate enough to get them, is to talk about specifically how many votes are left to be counted.
Right.
This afternoon, I looked at it, and I don't have the numbers in front of me.
With voter ballots counted?
Yeah, there were over 300, if my memory serves me correctly, there were over 300,000 votes already counted in the county, and I may be wrong on this.
Yeah,
but anyway,
I think it's about 323 is what we're looking at right now. Total eligible voters.
And I think there was only between 80 and 100,000 people who hadn't voted prior to today.
Right.
So how many more votes there will be to count in the next 3 or 4 days? Greg Kimsey could give us, hopefully Greg can give us a look at that, and then we can talk about whether or not Vicki Kraft can overcome a 1,600 vote deficit with Tanisha Harris, or whether or not Karen Bowerman can overcome an 1,100 vote margin with Jesse James in the county council race.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's also, we've been covering this since the beginning, but just record voter turnout across the country, but also specifically here in Clark County. The most recent numbers we have through the county elections website is over 80% voter turnout, which was earlier today, I believe, is where these numbers came from. And I mean, we had over 30,000 ballots turned in just today, and that was from, like I said, earlier today. So those numbers are likely only increasing.
So, hey, Ken, when did you vote? I'm just taking a little poll here. When did you turn in your ballot?
That's a personal question.
Jacob, what about you?
So I turned mine in, I think, several days ago. That was also very interesting. Another update, little side note here within Clark County. We've added an immense number of drop boxes here in Clark County.
There are now 22 drop boxes in Clark County.
I think before this we had 7. So I mean, that's a very large increase there. And I think we were in the high 60s. The low 60% of people who were favoring the drop box over the mail-in, and I was one of those.
No,
and
the reason, the reason I was asking is just do a little poll here because we like to do it on the day of. We love election day,
right.
So we finished voting last night in our house, and then we brought the ballots down to the Vancouver Mall one. But it's just, you were talking about the turnout and all the early voting. But Washington, we're used to being able to do it, and the rest of the country is getting that now. And it's fascinating to see how many ballots were put out there, weeks before the, week or so before the election. But no, I just, I had Mike and I had a blast this morning at the Vancouver Mall. I don't know, it was just, I don't know, patriotic? What's the word? It was just so cool to see it, and there were a lot of people who didn't want to talk on camera, but they waved to us. We said, "Happy Election Day" to everybody. we didn't ask anybody for their beliefs or their votes, and most people. We had one dirty look. It was just like one bad look, and everything else was
They might have just been having a bad day.
Exactly, they might have just having a bad day, but most people just waved, said no, thank you, or just smiled and moved on. But it was just really cool to see that, and it's just fascinating to me. Another one that was interesting, I was in the mall today, and one of the stores said, we're not going to open until noon, so we give all our employees the chance to vote.
Wow.
And I thought that was interesting because in our state, there's no lines.
Right.
I mean, the only lines is maybe 5 cars at the ballot drop-off. There's no, you're not waiting in hours, you're voting at home. And it's just, it's fascinating, the difference between Washington and some of the other states, and we've seen the lines. But my whole point on this is that, wow, crazy numbers, lots of people voting, and that's, I guess, a good thing.
Well, obviously, part of the national narrative has been the problems with voting by mail and voting remotely because of the pandemic.
Right, or even just waiting in long lines in some states, right.
But thankfully, here in the state of Washington, we've been voting by mail for a long time, and I think confidence is very high that I'm not aware of any real problems in the past. Certainly, there were not expected to be any problems in the state of Washington with our mail-in voting. Like you said, got to give credit to Clark County Elections Department.
Absolutely.
They recognized the need, and they went out and they placed. Like I said, they've increased the number of drop boxes in the county to 22 now, which was a significant improvement or a significant increase from prior years. So Clark County answered the bell. But for the most part, my point is, the state of Washington has been doing this for a long time, and it has been doing it well.
And on a national level, it's interesting because we hear the people on both sides saying, oh, there's going to be voter suppression, or there's going to be issues with the mail. And people on both sides of the aisle were complaining or not, or pointing fingers at the other one. And Oregon and Washington voters were always like, well, come on, it's easy, it's simple. Well, we've been doing it for years. Washington did not say 3 months ago we're going to have vote by mail and on a national election. They probably started at a primary level, the smaller election to get it done. So they worked on it, and they probably investigated it for years and researched it for years before they actually did it. And there's so many states out there doing it basically for the first time on a national election. So there is cause for concern for those things. But in Washington, Oregon, hey,
I think been that way for a while. And I think that was another interesting thing for me, just learning about how different voting is across the country, and places like Pennsylvania, where the law is that they don't even count the ballots until today. They don't count them until Election Day. I can't even imagine that living here most of my life in Washington. Just the differences in the way that we do it, and the way that it's changing, as you said, with the pandemic. And I'm curious. I know we have kind of a little bit of a lull here, but what are some things that surprised you, or that you learned this election that you didn't previously know or didn't previously think about? I know that I have one for sure.
Go ahead.
Lead
away.
I'll go ahead. I'll open it up. So
we did not talk about this one in pregame.
No, I know. I just thought of it. But one of the things that was really interesting to me is how different states do write-in candidates, and just how different it is across the country. Because I didn't know this. I looked it up. but there's about 3 states in the union that just don't do write-in at all. It's completely,
Right.
I don't know if illegal is the right term, but they just don't do it. And then there's about 9 states where you can write in anyone. I mean, I could write in my brother and just put him on the list there. And then the rest of the states, I'm bad at math, that's why I'm a journalist. So I don't know, you guys can tally up 9, 3, whatever's left from 50. But the rest of the states, Washington included, write-ins are only a certain number of people who have registered in time to be counted as a write-in candidate. And specifically with something like the presidency, there's a list that you can go online and actually read all the people who registered in time. I know people were joking about how, like, Kanye West, for example, didn't register in time in some states, but in other states he registered in time. So, like, for example, in a state where someone like that had registered in time, you could write them in, but in another state where they didn't register in time, you couldn't write them in. So very interesting how write-in has kind of evolved differently across the nation.
I'm not going to tell you who I voted for, but I did not vote for Mr. West.
Well, good to know, Paul. I appreciate it. You guys think of anything else? I know that I thought of that one.
Mickey Mouse is always the one that gets a lot of write-in candidates for all kinds of things. So
definitely.
And I did not vote for Mickey Mouse, although, be a pretty good candidate.
It's true.
He's
kind of represents America at the heart.
And he's unemployed right now in California.
We have one more video that
Yes,
Paul
we do.
and Mike did. Do you want to go to that?
Yes, let's go to that. Do you want to preface it with anything, Paul? I know we kind of talked about it a little bit before.
Like I said, to all the people who we spoke to at Vancouver Mall, thank you for taking the time. I mean, you're on your way to work or whatever, but there was, I told you about, the lady from, a place where they couldn't vote. And then we also saw, a man brought his young son just to show the voting. And it's not old school traditional voting in a booth, but it's still voting. And it was just so neat to see a dad and his young son going to vote. And thank you for sharing your time.
Yeah, well, alrighty. Well, we'll go to that clip right now. It's another round of folks from the same area. We're going to hear about their voting experience and what voting means to them.
It just means being able to share my voice with everyone, be able to be a part of it.
What does Election Day mean to you?
Election Day is it's a patriotic day. It gives me the right to exercise my vote, my opinion. It gives me the right to complain if the person I voted for didn't make it because I voted. And it determines what the next 4 years are going to look like.
Awesome. Yeah, what does Election Day mean to you?
It means to have a freedom to express my opinion. Well, I came from a country where, it's a communistic country, and so to be able to make that choice here and to have that freedom is awesome.
Oh, that's
I think Election Day for me and my family was a chance last night to sit at the kitchen table and go through the ballot, the magazine that they give out, and read through the candidates and actually make our voice heard. Have an opportunity to discuss openly with my my sister-in-law and my wife, and really talk about the issues at hand right now. And it was actually really eye-opening and a good discussion starter, I guess, for us and our family.
What does Election Day mean to you?
Well, I think the election's super critical this year. It means a lot. I think a lot's on the table. I think everything's going pretty poorly right now, and I hope everybody votes, and it seems like everybody's voting, and I think that's great.
Hi, folks. Thanks so much for being patient. We have a call coming up with Clark County Auditor Greg Kimsey. We're just getting things set on his end. As we all know, a very busy man tonight. So thank you so much for your patience. And as the graphic says, we'll be right back. Well, welcome back, everyone. Thank you for being patient and bearing with us. We're still waiting to jump on that call with Clark County Auditor Greg Kimsey. In the meantime, we wanted to talk a little bit with Paul. Just kind of, Paul, you have you mentioned it earlier, but just a very unique perspective tonight, because obviously you're dealing with young people and sports events a lot of times, and kind of jokingly, there's a lot of similarities in some ways to an election and a sporting event, and kind of just how everyone's pulling for a different person, and you're kind of witnessing the event unfold in real time. Absolutely. At Friday nights, normally Friday nights are pretty busy right now. We'd be in the playoffs in a normal year, and Friday night, the greatest night. I mean, I've done so many of them, and I never get tired of them. And at Clark County today, I'll go to a game, maybe two on a Friday. Mike Schultz will be at a game, and then I come and I write the stories.
Andy posts it on our website, but then we go and find all the results of all the other games on a Friday night, and we put them on our site on a Friday night, and we have such a small staff, but all of us are working it, on a Friday night, and that's what election night is. And so you get that same adrenaline, and I've missed it. So thanks, election. I guess I'm one of the rare people who wanted an election just because I miss sports so much.
Speaking of results and that adrenaline, you were going to also give us an update on the presidential race.
Right, and the score right now would be, Vice President Biden at 223, President Trump at 166.
With Electoral College
on the Electoral College, but not all of the states, but a lot of the states that haven't been called are leaning toward President Trump. Don't know, well, I know what that means. It means they're leaning toward President Trump. And if those states fall his way, I believe he'll be reelected.
Well, if you look at the Electoral College map right now, the only remaining state that is leaning to Biden is Minnesota. Surprising to me, Trump has a lean in Wisconsin and even Michigan, which would be a surprise for Trump to win those two states. And obviously Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Georgia haven't been called. But Trump is getting the lean in Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Georgia. And obviously out here on the West Coast, Nevada just closed their polls, 50 minutes ago. So Nevada's there's not a declaration.
Well, sorry to interrupt you there, Kim, but it looks like we've got Clark County Auditor Greg Kimsey set up on a call. So we are going to go ahead and move into that. So here we go. Hello, Greg. Can you hear us?
Good evening.
Thank you so much for joining us, sir. We really appreciate you piping in.
Happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, we'll get right off on it. I'm Jacob Granneman, a reporter. We also have reporter Paul Valencia and editor Ken Vance, as you know, are all here. So, Ken, I'll let you kick it off with a couple questions here to the auditor. But it's a busy night out there for sure, Greg.
Greg, looking at the early returns that you guys released tonight, can you give us somewhat of an estimate on how many ballots are still remaining out there for your department to count?
It's a little bit hard to do that.
Okay.
But
I'm sorry for asking the toughest question right off of the bat.
I'm a little bit. I spent the last 10 minutes trying to get onto your Google meeting. I had to download the app, and
we're very sorry
in the process of that.
Yeah, we're very sorry to make it difficult.
Everyone's got the preferred digital meeting world.
Right.
Okay, but here we go. So we think between now and when we certify election, we could have maybe an additional 60 or 70,000 ballots to count.
Wow. So far, there's 324,000 and some registered voters in Clark County. You've received ballots from 220,000, and now you're anticipating another 60 or 70.
Yep.
Okay. How many votes came in today alone?
We didn't process ballots today. We did have a ballot count today, and I think we added 17,000 ballots to the count today.
Okay. How about just basically give us an overview of how the process went today? Obviously, we're looking at, we've spoke to you almost daily for the last 2 weeks, and you've been projecting a 90% turnout, which is, an incredible turnout and an incredible Herculean task for you guys to facilitate that type of a turnout in this election. Tell us a little bit about how it went today. Were there any hiccups, or how do you feel everything transpired?
It went very smoothly for us. A big giant downpour in the middle of the day didn't help much, but it just is what it is.
Right.
But yeah, it went very, very smoothly for us here. We had a very large number of people that came to register in person and get a ballot today. That same day registration is a big factor in today's process down here. We had people out the building, down Franklin, down Mill Plain, all day long, and it's definitely the longest lines we've ever had down here on Election Day.
Wow.
And we're still processing registrations and issuing ballots as we speak. People who were in line at 8:00 p.m.
Oh my.
Wow, that's incredible.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, that's very good. Well, Greg, I just had a quick kind of a two-part question for you. Obviously there's so many factors at play this election with the pandemic and a lot of difficulties that we've all heard about for the last several months. I would love to just hear from you kind of what was the biggest challenge as of this point in today, and then on the flip side of that, what was the most rewarding part of today, just for you personally in your position?
Well, the biggest challenge for this whole election season, both you mentioned the pandemic, both primary and then the general election, was creating an environment where our temporary election workers were kept safe and felt they were being kept safe, and that we had created an environment where they felt safe, so that they would be willing to come and do the work that's required to process, almost 300,000 ballots in this general election.
Right.
So that was, that was absolutely the biggest challenge we faced, was creating an environment where people were willing to come to work. These are temporary employees that do it. They're paid for it, but they do it. They love the mission of our elections office, and so we put a lot of effort, a lot of thought, and a fair amount of money, federal grant money, but a fair amount of money into creating a working environment where people felt safe.
Right. Very good. And then kind of to go to that second part, the most rewarding element of today for you.
Oh, absolutely. The most rewarding part is to have, all these people that want to participate in our democracy. It's fantastic. It is very, very gratifying when you've got people who are working so hard so that their voice will be heard. And that's been true not just today, but ever since we sent ballots out. People have been very concerned that their ballot's going to be counted, and it's been really humbling how important this is for people.
Do you have a quick historical perspective of when the last time we had a turnout like this was?
I don't. I know back into the 90s, we've never seen turnout of 90%. In 2008, we had turnout of a little over 85%. And that was a huge deal. We're gonna exceed that this year. And I think maybe in the early 60s, John Kennedy presidential race, so maybe hit that 90%, but
wow.
I'm not sure. But
well,
so certainly in the call it modern history, it's a record turnout.
Most definitely.
Hey, I have one. This is Paul Valencia. When it's all over, and for you and your staff, and I'm talking like in a few days, like when a big election is over, what do you do to celebrate, or what do you do to just go, take a breath? I mean, do you have a big office party? Yeah. What do you do?
First we hold our breath and see if there's going to be a recount. That's the big thing.
And at some point, you're going to have to sleep for a week.
Yeah.
And then after we determine there's not going to be a recount, we start getting ready for the February election.
Right. Yeah, it's just a never-ending cycle there for sure.
Well, Mr. Auditor, we really appreciate all your cooperation, all your time. You've been incredibly responsive to us over the past weeks and months preparing for this election. Can't tell you how much we appreciate you coming on with us live tonight. And thanks for all that you've done to make this election such a historic election.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Well,
thank you.
You're very welcome, and thank you guys for the good coverage you provided this. I got to give a shout out to Chris Brown, who's just really done a remarkable job of. He knows a lot more about elections now than he did 2 months ago.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you, Greg.
All right.
Have a good night, sir.
Bye.
Well, the interesting thing that I take from that conversation with our auditor is if indeed there's 60 to 70,000 ballots left out there, and we all basically agree that the legacy, if you will, is that conservative or Republican voters vote late.
Right.
And that the late ballot counts usually favor the Republican or conservative candidates. The two races that, are probably the tightest in Clark County, as we talked about, is the county council race between Karen Bowerman and Jesse James.
Right.
And as we pointed out earlier, if I remember right, Jesse James is leading by about 1,100 votes, if I remember right.
I think it was more like 16.
Well, I thought that was Vicky Kraft, Tanisha Harris in the 17th Legislative District.
It was the 1,100, that's correct.
Tanisha Harris is leading Vicky Kraft, the Republican incumbent, by about 1,600 votes. So anyway, if there's 60 or 70,000 votes left to be counted, then those races are very much still in play.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Would be my assessment.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I think it was also just very interesting talking about, and I know we covered this this previous week or a couple weeks ago, just how you can, in fact, in the state of Washington, register to vote before 8 p.m. on Election Day. And you had people in the lines at 8 p.m. who are literally being processed right now. I mean, it's...
I have to laugh because I got a friend who lives in Vancouver who tweeted out today, is like, people are registering today?
I was surprised to hear that as well.
Have they been living under a rock?
Well, pretty much he said if they were in line before 8 o'clock, that the auditor's office was basically, or the elections department, was required basically to register them and allow them to vote.
Right.
That's incredible.
And I knew if
that surprised me.
I knew if you were in line to vote, you could vote, but I didn't know you could register.
I didn't know that either.
That's amazing.
It is very interesting for sure.
Boy, I tell you, we are only privy to what we can see on our computer screen on this electoral college map.
Right.
But things are really getting interesting in the presidential race. And again, there's a lot of things, there's a lot of context here that we may be missing. Because, for example, we talked about who this map says they're leaning toward in these remaining states. But for example, Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is one of those states that only a third of the voters that are voting in Pennsylvania voted before today. Whereas other states like Florida and other states, the overwhelming majority of voters voted prior to today.
Right.
But in Pennsylvania, only a third of the voters voted prior to today, so 2/3 of the voters voted today. And again, most people believe that means the people that vote today, the people that vote late, tend to be Republican, tend to be conservative.
Right.
So you would think that, like in Pennsylvania, you would think that the late returns would favor the president. And right now, only 56% of the vote has been counted in Pennsylvania, and as you've probably heard, they're going to be counting votes the rest of the week.
Right.
So we may not get a winner declared in Pennsylvania tonight or even the next day or two. And so I'll be honest with you, I don't have a BA degree in presidential politics.
Right.
So I can't, I was well versed on Pennsylvania, but I'm not well versed on all these other states that have not been declared yet.
Right.
So I can't tell you what the context is about the votes that are remaining, whether they're votes that were cast today, because there's some other states that the majority of the votes were cast prior to today, but they weren't counted.
Right.
So the late counts are actually votes that were made a couple weeks ago.
Right.
So I don't have that context in every state.
So while we were on the call with Mr. Kimsey, Fox News has Texas going to President Trump. And by the way, I'm looking at foxnews.com because their map is just the easiest one for me to follow.
It's very interactive. Yes.
But I will give a little critique to Fox News. I'm saying that they may
You
be
need
right.
to give this up. You're obsessed with this.
I'm obsessed with the Virginia one, aren't I? Yes.
Yeah, but Virginia was one of those states where you didn't have to even look at a single vote to know who was going to carry the state.
Right. So Fox News at 1% gave Virginia to Vice President Biden. But right now, 67% are in, and Trump is still leading. Now, yes, statistically, we know that this is going to go to Biden.
You've been obsessed with that all night long.
I just don't know why they do it. Why don't they just wait? We don't need to be first.
To pop into you guys, but it looks like Representative Vicky Kraft has reached out and is hopefully going to be on a phone call with us, similar to Greg Kimsey. Looks like she dialed in, but we didn't catch her. So she's going to hopefully dial in here again in just a minute. So just wanted to give everybody a little heads up. We're going to be waiting to join in on that, and we're very excited to talk to her as well about her race, which is once again one of the more tight ones this evening. But most definitely going to continue on with everything you guys were talking about. Just
well, it's funny because
in many of those states,
everybody gave Washington, Oregon, California, as soon as the polls closed, they were for Mr. Biden, and of course they are for Mr. Biden, and all the numbers, early numbers suggest that. But I think it's funny that here we are, hours later, and Virginia still hasn't swung yet to the former vice president.
Right. Yes, very good.
But yeah, everything else, as we mentioned earlier, Minnesota is still leaning toward Biden, but all the other states that are available are leaning toward Trump, and that's a pathway to re-election, if I'm looking at this correctly.
But again, we're conceding the fact that we're missing some context by being here with you and not watching the national pundits.
Right.
So.
Plus, it's also it's just a network calling a race. It doesn't mean
right.
So, and all these places can be changed because of all the weeks it could take to certify an election in some of these states because of all the ballots that are out there.
As we learned in 2000, I mean, it's very easy. You have stations calling things and then retracting those calls not too long after that. Yeah. So yeah. Well, we're hoping to get that call with Representative Kraft here very shortly. Just waiting for her to tap in, and we're going to be reaching out to her. But
these candidates are incredible for even considering to come on with us tonight.
Absolutely.
On a night where their local parties are having get-togethers that they have to attend
virtually and in person simultaneously.
Exactly, yeah. The fact that they're even making attempts to join us tonight, we're so appreciative, and thanks to Greg Kimsey again, Clark County Auditor, for coming on with us.
Yes, that was fantastic. Yeah, and we're hoping, it looks like, to talk to also County Councilor Gary Medvegi here in a little bit as well. We're just trying to get them all coordinated here, and so we appreciate you being with us.
Can I do a little on-air producing real quick?
Yes, please.
Gary Medvegi needs us to resend him the link.
Yes, we can do that.
Okay. So, Paul, do we have any updates on the Senate, the balance in the United States Senate?
I'd have to do a little things. I can get there. I'll take a look. One of the things, state referendum 90, that was a big one.
Oh, absolutely.
We haven't talked about that yet.
Do you have an update on that?
Seattle Times is announcing it has been approved, 59, basically 60 to 40 approved. So Seattle Times has already done the check mark.
So the fact that, help me here, my brain only can work so fast.
It's okay.
So the fact that voters approved referendum 90 means that the sexual education curriculum bill that was passed in the Senate earlier this year will indeed go into motion.
Yes,
because the voters would have had to reject R90 in order for the sexual ed curriculum.
Correct. And that's what's unique about a referendum, especially in the state of Washington.
Requiring public schools to offer comprehensive, age-appropriate sexual education for all students, but parents can opt out. Can have their children opt out.
Right, which I think it's important to note that has been the case for all of the curriculum that has been in place up until now. So that opt-out function is still in place, even with the new curriculum, the new age-appropriate curriculum.
So as we're waiting to talk to Gary Medvegi, and I apologize, Gary. I know Gary well, but I struggled to pronounce his last name correctly.
I hear it both ways, and hopefully he can give us a little instruction on
hopefully he'll forgive me. But anyway, if you're just joining us, if you weren't with us earlier, two very important races for the county council. And in Gary's race, which is District 4, the early returns, he's got 55.68% of the vote, and Matt Little has 44.32% of the vote. About a 6,500 vote difference between Gary and Matt Little, so it looks like Gary is in good shape to remain on the Clark County Council. The other race in District number 3 is the one that's been a bit of a surprise tonight,
right?
Because Karen Bowerman had a significant lead in the August primary, and tonight the Democrat, Jesse James, has a lead of about 1,110 votes, if my math is correct, 51.25% to 48.75% for Karen Bowerman. And as Greg Kimsey told us, there could be as many as 60 to 70,000 votes remaining to be counted, so perhaps an 1,100 vote margin is not, it doesn't sound unattainable. So that race appears to be very much in play.
Absolutely, very much. Well, we are still looking to hear back from those folks, and obviously I think that's something that we have all anticipated this year. And I mean, it's very obvious, even in larger networks, just the shift with the pandemic, everything online. And as Mr. Kimsey was joking when we spoke with him, everyone seems to have their preferred platform to communicate. And so we're using Google, some folks are using Zoom and other platforms like that. So getting them to all talk to each other or getting them to work on different people's machines is obviously an exciting challenge. So while we wait for that, we're going to go to a quick commercial break. So we're going to hear from another one of our amazing sponsors, and then we will be back with you again once we have one of those calls situated over here. So thank you so much.
Every time, every touch. Peace Health is safe, open, and ready for you.
Hi, folks. Thanks so much for being patient again. We are tracking down some people tonight, some candidates. We'd love for you to hear from them. We'd love to talk to them. So we are still working on that, technologically speaking. Thanks for bearing with us. The pandemic, as we all know, has made it rather challenging and a big learning curve for a lot of us to adapt to all the different platforms out there for calling folks in. So we will be back as soon as we can. So thanks for your patience.
We're done when we leave it up there to be viewed.
Welcome back, folks. Thanks so much for your patience. We are hopefully about to get on a call with County Councilor Gary Medvedji, who's running in a race against the independent challenger, Matt Little. So thank you for staying with us. We're just going to chat a little bit until we get him on the line, and then we'll talk to him, and then we're probably going to be on our way out this evening to leave you on to bigger and better things. But thanks for being with us.
Speaking of bigger and better things, didn't you have a small update for us on
well, you had asked about Senate stuff going on. U.S. Senate. So it looks like Fox News is reporting Alabama has flipped to Republican, but Arizona and Colorado flipped to Democrats. Those are the only ones that are flipping so far. So
we have a net loss of one Republican.
Yeah.
Oh yes. Sorry. One moment.
Oh, hold on one second.
We're doing a little on-air production.
A little on-air producing. No worries.
We're okay.
Heidi, come back in here.
Yeah, we're okay. she's mortified for introducing. It's okay. Live TV, everybody. Live whatever this is.
Producer Heidi Wetzler.
That was awesome. Okay, but some of the big names. Lindsey Graham is winning big.
But anyway, if the Democrats have a net gain of one seat
so far,
then the Republicans would continue to hold the
Right.
Senate 52-48.
Right, but there's still several others out there, several out there. But
the Alabama race, is that the Tommy Tuberville, the former football coach?
Yes, and then Joni Ernst, Senator Ernst from Iowa, she was in a huge battle, and I mean 95% of the votes in, and she's winning by 6 points, and that was a huge battleground. The Democrats thought they were going to be able to flip that one, and so far it doesn't look like it.
Yeah, very good. Well, it's looking like we're still trying to connect on there. So thank you guys for staying patient with us. We're just going to give it another minute, and then we'll be moving on.
The important thing is, the Clark County Elections Department makes another release of results once a day.
Right.
And so I believe every day at about 4 o'clock, we will get updated results. Right. And especially in these two races involving, as we mentioned, the county council race between Karen Bowerman and Jesse James, and the 17th Legislative District representative race between Tanisha Harris and Vicki Kraft. It sounds like there's reason to stay tuned to Clark County Today this week, because we will have updates every day with some new numbers, and we may not know until Friday who's going to win those two races.
I know that's happened a few times locally. Local races taking days to find out, and it's as we talk about with sports analogy, those are great finishes.
All righty. It looks like Gary Mevigi is calling us right now, so we're going to pop that up on the screen here. Hopefully, well, not screen, but you'll see us and hear him. Hopefully, so. Paul, our control board person, our second Paul, we've got a couple Pauls with us tonight, is hopefully going to take that here in just a moment. So we'll see if that goes through.
And this broadcast will be available
yes.
On our website and on our Facebook page, our social media pages, for you to view afterwards and overnight. And then we will continue, obviously, with election coverage on our website starting in the morning. But until then, you can view this again and review the races. Also, you can also go to the Clark County Elections Department website and view the results yourself. If there's anything that we haven't given you that you're curious about, you can go to Clark County Elections and look at tonight's results yourself. But we will continue to cover these races going forward.
Yes, and I think it's also important to mention really quick that we were able to embed election results on our website. So if you're familiar with our website and you're able to go there, we have that information embedded on our elections tab. So if you go to the side of the screen that has Elections 2020, the icon, or you can get to that page and there will be some election results from the Clark County Elections Office embedded on our website right there. So, alrighty, well, it looks like he might need a pen.
A pen?
A pen, not a writing pen.
A pen, okay, well. So Ken, while we're waiting, you'll love this because you like to have fun at my expense on this one. So right now, 76% of the vote in Virginia, and Mr. Biden has taken the lead.
Oh, ye of little faith, Paul Valencia.
Yes. So it looks like the experts were right on that one when it was 1% voting in. So. Oh man, like I said, I just wish they would wait.
Well, I remember 2016, obviously, most of us remember where we were on election night 2016, and wasn't it about 12:45 our time when they finally called the presidential race? Right. And I stayed up, again, I believed everything I was told. I believed there was no chance that, that it was all a foregone conclusion that Hillary Clinton was going to win. And but I started tuning in, and then enough things kept happening, and I kept watching and kept watching and kept watching, and so we kind of started the day the exact same way today, and now enough things are happening.
It's very possible that we'll get another montage of experts saying Trump has no chance, and then he won.
Well, we told the story. I was watching a national pollster. being interviewed a couple weeks ago, and the guy was great. I mean, he absolutely confessed all of his sins and said, listen, we realize we blew it in 2016.
Right.
And we have gone back and we have analyzed our performance from 2016. We've changed the models. We've done everything we could do to try to keep from making the same mistakes again. So we are trying to do a better job this time. But he said, we recognize
it looks like we've got Greg Kim, or sorry, not Greg Kimsey, Gary Medvedji is on the line. So sorry, guys. Thank you for sticking with us. It's been a perseverance. Let's open that channel up. Gary, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Awesome. Yes. Thank you so much for sticking with us. This is my personal victory tonight to get you on the call. So thanks so much.
It took some effort, but I did it.
Oh, but we are proving we're still better than technology. So hopefully that's a trend that continues. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Counselor. So let's, Ken, do you want to kick it off with a couple questions?
Absolutely, Gary. Obviously, a very comfortable lead at this point. We talked to Auditor Greg Kimsey. He said there's about 60,000, 70,000 votes left to be counted. But tell us your initial reactions to your results and possibly how you view the rest of the week.
Well, so I'm humbled with the results, but it's a muted response as I'm watching the national and state and other local elections. So I'm hoping there are some turnarounds in some of the other races. I do feel confident that we have a comfortable lead at this point. Obviously, until they certify it, it's not over. But I'm humbled by the support. I've tried to earn it, tried to stay true to my constituents, which I will promise to do in the future. I do want to give a message right away because we're getting a lot of emails on somewhat of a different topic, but that's the civil unrest that we're experiencing, not only nationally, but now it's bled into Vancouver. We're different than what's happened in Seattle, other cities, Portland for sure. You know, we have, and I will let you know that I've worked very hard behind the scenes to let law enforcement, our prosecuting attorney, our mayor, other counselors know that I'm going to support law enforcement. We have a good plan in place, and between the federal government, state resources, our local chiefs of police, and our sheriff, we have a good plan in place, and we will enforce law and order. Vancouver will not turn into Portland. And thank goodness for all the good citizens that are out there as well, that are concerned and not willing to support lawlessness. You know, we're going to protect everyone's rights to express their First Amendment views, but we're not going to tolerate property damage and assaultive behavior here in Clark County. I think we're too proud of our city and our county to allow that to happen. So I wanted to put that out there because we're getting a lot of emails. A lot of people are nervous about it. And especially with the national election, what's going to happen. You know, the United States has a proud heritage of having peaceful transitions of power. What separates us from a lot of other governments. I'm not so sure it was so peaceful in 2016 because one side seemed to never give up on fighting a different way. But we need to have peace and quiet and accept the outcome of the will of the people. And on that note, everyone should be very proud for participating. We had such enormous numbers, and I'm sure Greg shared that. I mean, participation in this election was phenomenal with people voting, which makes our democracy vibrant. We count on it. I think everybody should be proud of that. Even if your favorite candidate didn't win, let's accept it and move on. We have a lot of work to do locally. And if you want to ask me specifically about what I hope to work on, I'm happy to share that.
Absolutely, Gary. Go right into it.
All right. Well, so the Charter Review Commission, they're going to have a bunch of work. You know, a lot of people don't understand how we function at the county level, and to some extent with the home charter, the home rule, it's still somewhat of an experiment. We have, and probably have had for decades, a tremendous issue in some of our departments. Permitting, code enforcement. We're looking at equestrian code, rural business code, revising a bunch of code. So we're working very hard with the manager, and I'm hoping to ramp that up where we get real reform in the permitting department and code enforcement in particular. Those are executive branch functions. So we just can't weigh in and change things the way it used to be prior to the charter change. So that's a huge challenge, but it impacts everything from affordable housing, development, single-family homes. People wait months, years to get their permits approved, and it's a very inconsistent and costly process. Time costs money, and we're wasting everyone's time. So we really need to get at that in earnest. We'll see what happens with the District 3 race, because it certainly would have been a lot easier if Karen Barrowman pulls out and gets put in place, because I think we can have 3 conservative votes to get things fixed. And regardless, we will bond and work together, and I'm hopeful that the other councilors will join me in trying to get some reform done on the executive side. Because ultimately, we may need to change codes if we need to get at that in that way. But the manager is very mindful and certainly has had an earful since she's taken over as the manager. So the way ahead is for complete reform, not just incremental change in those departments.
Very interesting stuff, Gary. That is going to be an interesting story to follow for the next 6 months or so, the activities of the Charter Review Committee. So you're absolutely right. Thanks for sharing that. We're going to be on top of that for the next 6 months. So I have to ask, we've been holed up here at our studio. Are there any reports out there of any violence going on in Clark County tonight?
Well, so the simple answer is no.
Good.
I do get updates from not only the sheriff but the manager when there is something significant to report, and so I have not gotten that. So I'm assuming it's quiet. That doesn't mean it couldn't change, and quite frankly, it usually happens at night where stuff starts to ramp up. But I will tell you that everyone is working together, and law enforcement knows they have support. The sheriff had the jail ready, and it is ready. We've got open bed spaces ready for people to be if they're arrested. I will tell you a side story that came out of the first night, which I think set the tone. Over in Portland, a lot of people just got picked up and cited and released. So they just had a fun night and went home. Here, they got booked. And there were a number of people that broke down crying when they realized they were going to jail for violating the law. That word spreads. So they spent some time in jail until they could bail. Some may still be there for all I know. But anyway, it set a tone that was very different from other cities. And it's the right tone. It's a general deterrent message that lawlessness will not be tolerated here. So we're very hopeful that with all of the manpower that's available and the plans that are in place, that we can keep it under control. Obviously, that can change in an instant, but we have, law enforcement has really stepped up and planned this out, working together at every level. And that includes the PA and also the local U.S. attorney over in Portland. So we're going to make sure we protect our sovereignty here in Clark County and make sure the rule of law is maintained.
Very good. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Gary. We really appreciate you coming on and talking with us tonight. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, sorry I couldn't see you, but better times are coming.
We appreciate your persistence.
Yeah, no worries. We definitely appreciate it. Have an excellent evening.
All right, you too. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Interesting stuff.
Yeah, most definitely a lot to unpack there for sure. And
yeah,
like
a lot to unpack.
going into the coming weeks and months, and obviously, and yeah, it is interesting when you see a change, especially in a governing body, when you have shifts of political ideology within the members and seeing them have to kind of figure out a way to work together. I think it's a healthy thing to witness when it works well, and I think it definitely is interesting to watch happen.
Well, I don't want to get into any editorializing here tonight, but obviously I did write an editorial over the weekend. It was a rather benign editorial that obviously I am like a lot of people in Clark County, including Councilor Medvegi, that I don't want to see violence in our community.
Right.
I don't want to. I don't know anybody who should want to see violence in our community. So what really resonated with me is that, as you know, we've been aware over in the city of Portland, you know, the people who have been arrested basically were arrested and released on the spot. And Gary said that didn't happen this weekend. There were 6 people arrested in downtown Vancouver early Saturday morning, Friday night into Saturday morning. 6 people were arrested. Only 2, by the way, had Clark County addresses.
Right.
But the counselor just shared with us that it wasn't a situation where they were arrested and immediately released.
Right.
They were booked and they went through the process. And I'm sorry, you commit a crime, you do the time.
Yep.
And so I was very happy to hear that.
Right, most definitely. It definitely a different message than we've heard out of some of the areas around us. So.
And I went out Saturday morning and to take pictures of the damage, and I was proud to be able to say it really was minor damage. It was, I mean, any damage is bad. I mean, but compared to what I thought I was going to see, it wasn't as bad as Portland. It wasn't as bad as Seattle. And so, yeah, thank you, Vancouver. Thank you.
Definitely good to see peaceful displays of the First Amendment and not violence. Yeah. Awesome. Well, we have another one of our advertisers coming up. We're just going to go to a quick message, a short break, and then we'll be back with you for the tail end of our broadcast this evening. Thanks so much for being with us.
At Peace Health Medical Center, every person receives safe, compassionate care every time, every touch. Peace Health is safe, open, and ready for you. Having trouble paying your utility bill? Clark Public Utilities can help 24 hours a day. Call now at 360-992-3000.
Remember, when you're driving, it's your car, your rules. If your passengers want to ride with you, they need to buckle up, no exceptions. In a crash, an unbuckled passenger hurtling around could kill other people in the car. Only 5% of Washingtonians don't buckle up, yet they account for a large percentage of our traffic fatalities. Seatbelts are your best defense against being killed in a crash. It's Washington's goal to have 0 traffic deaths, so buckle up every trip, every time. And take the Target Zero pledge. We can't reach 0 without you.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We're back here to close out this evening's broadcast. It's been a really big pleasure to talk to you guys. I think we've kind of covered a lot of different elements tonight. Thankfully, we got to speak with a couple folks from the community and hear from a lot of folks while they were casting their ballots. So thank you all for staying through and watching it with us and learning and being informed. So yeah, I'll leave it to you guys, Paul and Ken, if you want to give some closing thoughts on this evening.
Yeah, I just want to say that Election Day is one of my favorite days. Every 4 years, the big national election. It's one of my favorite days ever. Because it's a celebration of America. I'll admit, I don't necessarily appreciate the build-up to Election Day and the months and months, and it just gets too much. But the actual day is special, and we should celebrate that. We should celebrate our differences, but then come together, all that stuff that politicians talk about. But hey, no matter who wins or loses, if you got family, you got friends, you're a winner. We're living in this great country that allows us to vote. I celebrated today. I do celebrate on Election Day. I bought another Raider hat, and I bought a Prince T-shirt because that's what I do.
Right.
But also, I got a lot of family and friends, and no matter who wins, no matter who loses today, try to keep that in perspective. That your friends and family are important, no matter who they voted for. Give them hugs. It's been a strange year. Hugs, everybody, on Election night.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, we will note, though, that buying the Prince and the Raider stuff, that's just a normal Tuesday for you, right, Paul?
Yeah, and I am wearing a Raider tie. I just want you to know that. So, because the whole red and blue thing. No, I'm silver and black.
You're gonna get fined for showing your Raider tie on a live broadcast. I just want to say, please come back to ClarkCountyToday.com for coverage. The election. Obviously, all the races are not over with.
Absolutely.
Local races, we've outlined pretty clearly that there's 2 local races that there will be reasons to continue to keep an eye on. So please come back to ClarkCountyToday.com, and we'll continue to cover this in the days ahead.
Excellent. Well, thank you all so much for joining us. It's been our pleasure to bring this information to you. We're very proud of our community for all of you getting out there and voting today and making your voice heard and being a part of the community to really participate in the amazing experiment which is America. And we're so excited that it's continuing and that you're a part of it. So thank you guys for watching. As Ken said, be sure to tune in. This broadcast will continue to be available even after it is no longer live. We hope to have it also be put up on YouTube. So if you enjoyed parts of it or you want to share parts of it with people you know in the community, you'll be able to share it not only on Facebook but likely on YouTube as well. So be sure to keep an eye out for that. And then, as we mentioned earlier, we'll have the elections results embedded on our website. So be sure to go to that link on the side of the page. There's a big button that's like kind of an I voted button that says Elections 2020 with Clark County Today. Be sure to click on that. You can read some of our previous coverage and look at the results. So again, thank you all so much. We really appreciate you being here. Have an excellent night, and we'll see you again soon.